Welcome to the Inside Nutley Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Greco, and I'm pleased to be joined by National Football League official and Nutley High School Class of 1997 graduate, Robin DeLorenzo. Welcome, Robin.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with the fact that you were the third female ever hired by the NFL to be an on-field official. What does that mean to you?
It means everything. I didn't realize how important it was, to be quite honest with you, during my journey. It never dawned on me how important it was to show women and girls that, anything we set our minds to, we can do. It just didn't dawn on me until I got into the higher levels of officiating, where I realized how rare it was, and just how important it was when so I could show, young girls what it's like to make your dreams come true, even if it's in a man's world.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. What was it like joining what has traditionally been an all-men's club?
It wasn't as ostracizing as I might have thought it would have been. The men that I've worked with over the years, starting from day one in the NJFOA North, where I came out of for high school football, even those gentlemen, they were just, they treated me well. It didn't seem like it was such a big deal. They didn't make it a big deal, and neither did I, to be quite honest with you. And the higher up I got in college football, the more it was just do your job, be great at your job, and be a great teammate. And it didn't really matter what I was. So I was lucky in that sense.
Do you think this could have happened 30 years ago?
Well, I started 22 years ago, and
Okay.
I was allowed to start. There was no issue whatsoever. There was no pushback at all. So when I joined the class 22 years ago, it was fine. It was okay. So perhaps 30 years ago, it still would have been okay. I like to think it.
Yeah, exactly.
But
We like to think that. Sure. What about the fans?
oh, the fans are tough. Fans are always tough. Fans are tough for all the officials, though. We're easy targets, and a lot of times it's unfair, of course, but we're just easy targets, and it goes with the job.
All right, let's go back in time. Were you born in Nutley?
Well, I was born in New York City, but I lived in Nutley my whole life. Yes.
What grammar school is good?
I went to Radcliffe. Yes, I lived up on Girard Road. I lived in a home that, for a short time, my grandmother owned. Then my parents bought the house from my grandmother. So I lived up on Girard Road. I had the best little neighborhood. I had friends that, we rode our bikes in the street, and we played tag, and we played football in the snow on our front lawn. And it was Radcliffe School District. So I went to Radcliffe.
Were you always interested in sports?
Since the day I was born. I was put in gymnastics at a very young age. My parents, I kind of climbed out of my crib a lot, and I just was a little daring as a child. So they said, good, put her in gymnastics. She'll learn how to take a fall and, learn where your body is in air and in space. And that's very important. And so I've been a gymnast since I was very little. And goodness, I played the baseball, t-ball. I played soccer when I was a kid. I was a swimmer. I was a dancer for a little while. I was a twirler. I was a cheerleader. I ran track and field. I've tried and done almost every sport except football. We didn't have girls flag football back in the day, but I would have loved to have that, of course, too.
So you went through a lot of the town's rec programs?
I did. I can't. I like I said, I played soccer many years as a child, and baseball up until I think whatever was. I didn't get up to little league. I had tried other things at that point. I've never tried basketball, but I was a cheerleader for basketball. And track and field, I went through the town program as a child in elementary school at Radcliffe School. I went through the track and field program led by Mr. Pietoso, which was just, and Mr. Keating. And I don't know if you remember those names, but just so impactful in my entire life because I had such incredible coaches from the Nutley program that I attribute a lot of my success to the way I was treated in sports in Nutley.
Mr. Keating was definitely a character. He was my freshman football teacher.
Oh,
Right?
oh,
Great
I
guy.
love that man. Yes. Yes, and Mr. Pietoso as well. They were very strict, but always had a good time and always encouraged. And you could feel the love that they felt for their athletes, and just anything we could do, they were so impressed with us, and it just made us feel good, and it gave us confidence as athletes. I can't thank them enough for that.
That's great. What are some of your favorite memories growing up in Nutley?
Oh gosh, the food. There's no question. So of course, my last name DeLorenzo. Of course, I'm Italian. I'm from Nutley, of course. From Jersey. So I'm have to say, Sunday dinners with my grandmother's is top of the list. If it's not my grandmother's food, I will happily take something from Nutley, either from a deli or a restaurant or a pizzeria or a diner or anything. The food in Nutley is just second to none. And I can't tell you, with all the traveling I do, how much I miss Nutley's food.
That's interesting, because that's kind of I told you that we interviewed Phil Cuzzy on here, the Major League umpire,
of course.
And he basically said the same thing, that it's the food that you miss the most.
Don't get me wrong, the people making the food as well are near and dear to my heart, and it's always a pleasure to go into an establishment to eat the most incredible food, but also to spend time with the Nutley business owners and the workers in their establishments. It's always an incredibly wonderful experience.
Traveling around the country with whether it be through college or professional sports, do you see a lot of places like Nutley around?
No.
Again, referring back to our interview with Phil, he said that Nutley is so different from most of the rest of the country that a lot of his peers can't comprehend.
Cannot comprehend. I couldn't agree more. I work with a lot of people from all over the country, and there's no one on my crew this year or last year that was from New Jersey. So I have people that on my crew from Texas and Atlanta. I've worked with people from Wisconsin, and trust me when I tell you, there's no place like home. There's no place like Nutley, New Jersey, and I mean that with all my heart.
Did you go to Walker Middle School?
Yes, I did. It wasn't the Walker Middle School just when I was there, but
Franklin
yes.
still then, right? So
it was the Franklin Middle School, junior
right.
high.
Yeah. And then
did you know we're the only ones who refer it to? We're the only ones who refer to it as junior high. Did you know that? That's something unique from Nutley.
Really?
No one else does that. It's always middle school. And I was like, really? We always call it junior high. And that's
always
different
junior
from
high,
Nutley.
right? Yeah, definitely. And you go through Nutley High. Was officiating in your sights as a career at that point?
No, not at all. I was a cheerleader in Nutley High School. I always wanted to be around the game of football. I loved it. I cheered through college, and my father was an official, and he was working NJFOA North. And at that time, I guess it must have been about 15 years when I graduated college that my father had been doing it. And I was home from school, and he comes into my room. He's like, hey, you want to come talk football? And I was like, of course. And I get to hang out with my dad for the night. Like, absolutely, sign me up. So we went to class. The class was up in Totowa. And 5 minutes in, I'm kind of looking at my dad going, wait, can I actually do this? Did you bring, I didn't know what, I thought I was just coming to hang out. But can I do this? Because this sounds amazing. And he's like, sure, I don't see why not. Why not? And so I fell in love that very first night with officiating. There's no question. And I just saw another way to be a part of a football game. What could I do? I could cheerlead, and now I could officiate. And no, I had never thought of it before, because I never saw, there were no women to see on a football field except, as a cheerleader. And I didn't even know it was possible. No, I never thought about it until I sat down in that seat and listened for 5 minutes. And then I said, oh yeah, this is for me.
What were your goals in high school though, before you found this new career that you didn't realize you had an opportunity in?
Oh gosh, there's plenty of things I wanted to be. At my youngest age, I remember, and for the longest time, I actually wanted to be in the CIA or the FBI. And my degree is in psychology from Fordham University. And I was still considering, I got an application for the Secret Service when I was graduating college, and things of the law enforcement investigative field. Criminal minds, the psychology of a criminal mind always intrigued me. And that's where I thought I was going.
That sounds exciting too. I mean, that's kind of like on a different level, but I mean, both kind of secret societies, I guess, to some extent, right?
I never thought about that, but true. Yeah.
Did what was your very first game officiating? Where and when?
Oh, my first game was in so when you go to the cadet class, you work you're in class for a whole year, 2 semesters worth of a class. You have to take a state exam, and you have to hold the chains for a varsity crew and follow them around for a football season. During that time, you can work JV and freshman and sophomore games in high school. So I did work those that first year. My first varsity game, after I passed the class, after I passed the test, after I held the chains and worked as many games as I could, my first varsity game was down at Milburn High School. And I'll never forget, my dad was not on the field. He had his own game. It was a Friday night game. And I worked with a bunch of gentlemen who had known my dad for many years. They were excited to have me as I was to be there. It was a great experience. And I remember after the game, walking in the parking lot back to my car, and I hear someone call my name. And it made me nervous for a second. Like, I just officiated the game. I don't remember who won either. But there was one team that lost, of course. And I didn't know if it was a fan from that. So I kind of just turned around a little bit, and it turned out to be Coach Rich Sanfilippo. And he was the high school football coach, of course, when I was in high school. He was the state champion winner when my brother was a senior in high school, the 92 season. 92, 93, 92. So 92 season. Yeah. So I had known Coach Sanfilippo my whole high school career, because I did have an older brother. I was very good in gym class. And so Coach Sanfilippo knew me. And I said hello to him in the parking lot, and he said, I saw a female on the field. He goes, and it just dawned on me, it had to be you. And of course, we're from Nutley, and this is Milburn. It wasn't even close. And I was just like, wow, like, that made me feel good that he as soon as he saw a woman, he could think of me and say that could be her, and she could be successful on a football field, because I'm not surprised that Robin, could do that. Funny side story. When I did have him as a gym teacher, as a phys ed teacher, we used to go outside, and it would be girls play softball, boys play football, and my hand would shoot up, and I'd be like, and he'd be like, okay, DeLorenzo's the quarterback. No one touches her, because we played 2-hand touch. And they're like, no one touches her. She's the quarterback. We know, Robin, you're playing the football with the boys. So it was just like a full circle moment. Yeah, it was a full circle moment. And he stays in contact with me and my family, and on social media and things like that. And he seems wonderful. He always, messages me when there's a big game and he sees me on it. And it's just so nice to always hear from Nutley, every chance I get. I love it.
There's a Nutley connection everywhere, isn't there?
Everywhere. So true.
It's crazy. True. Did you ever referee or officiate a Nutley game?
Never the varsity, no. Never a Nutley varsity game. The JV and the freshmen, yes. We were allowed to do that. There was nothing wrong with that. I used to work games with my dad, Nutley freshman games, Saturday mornings, and they get screamed at by the fans, and it was great. They all knew our names, though, so that was always hard, but never a varsity game, no.
That's cool. You go from high school, you make the jump to college, and you end up doing like the massive games like Michigan, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. How quick was that process, and what was that like?
It was not very quick at all, actually. So I worked usually the usual steps of an official are about 5 to 6 years in high school level. And then you apply to college, and you join a chapter, and you learn the college rules, because it's very different. I waited 11 years. So I did high school for 11 years. I worked a state final. I worked playoff games. I did all of the things that I could do in high school football. One of the officials in the NFL, Ed Camp, who was an NFL down judge for many, many years, he was at the class the first night that I was in cadet class. So he was there. So I got to know Ed over the years, and he was very supportive of my career as well. And he was a good friend of my father's. Ed every year would kind of say, after 5 years, Ed was saying, Robin, let's go to college. You want to go to college? Let's try college ball. Let's say. And every year I would just say, no, I'm having a great time with my dad. Like, college football is not going to beat working with my dad. Like, running out of a tunnel with my dad is the greatest thing ever. And nothing's ever going to top that. So I waited. About 11 years in, Ed said, if you're going to do it, we need to do it, because you're getting older, and you need to move. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. So I went with a signer that only had JUCO, which is junior college, and D3 level. So I went to an assigner that couldn't promote me. All they could give me was the very basics and the low end of the hierarchy of college football. I worked a couple of years there. I learned the rules. I worked, instead of in high school in Nutley and in North Jersey, we work with 6 people on a football field. In college, you're now going to work with 7. So it's a big difference. Our keys, our responsibilities change dramatically. So I had to learn all that. So I stayed with D3 and JUCO, and then I went to a bunch of clinics and camps, and to learn more. I went all over the country and learned how to officiate in my off seasons, how to get better. And I ended up getting hired into the PSAC. So that's a D2 conference covering mostly Pennsylvania. And so I worked there for a time, and I got promoted into the Northeast Conference, which is what we used to call 1AA, but we call FCS level football. So I worked in the NEC then next. And then I came to a crossroads where I worked a season at FBS level. So it was the college bowl, football bowl series level of football, Division I. And I split a season between Conference USA and the Mid-American, the MAC. When that season was done, I had to make a choice. I chose to go the Mid-American route. I stayed there for a couple years, and then that was the same progression. That was the same boss as the Big Ten, and Bill Carollo hired me into the Big Ten a couple years after I got into the Mid-American. Spent a couple years in the Big Ten, worked my last 2 games, which you mentioned, were Ohio State, Michigan, which was just the most incredible experience of my life. And I was the first female to ever work that game. And my referee at the time, Larry Smith, was the first Black referee to work that game as well. So that was extra special. And the last game of my college career was the Fiesta Bowl, which was a couple weeks later. And that was Oklahoma State, Notre Dame in Glendale, Arizona. And that's a New Year's Six bowl game, which is a very big deal. And again, I was the only female who's ever worked one of those either. So it was very special, very special.
Is it intimidating to come out in front of 100,000 people?
So it's funny, my father, of course, was there. My parents were there, and he takes a picture of the number on the big screen, and it was 111,156 people. And yes, you get your heart going for sure. But honestly, once they kick the ball off, now it's just a football game. You really don't have time or the energy or the mental capacity to even absorb what everything else is happening. There's more than enough going on the field that I have to deal with and work with. So
I just can't imagine that. You must have nerves of steel to block all that out.
It gets easier. It does get easier because if you aren't at 100% focus level, that's the hardest part of our job, is the focus that it takes to officiate a football game. The moment the focus is broken, you're missing something. I'm missing something. And if I'm missing something, one of my crewmates can't do their job either. We're so intertwined in what we're doing. And sometimes they need information. They need it from me. And if I lost focus and can't get them that information, then my team is at a loss. So it's really, it's a skill, and it takes a lot of practice, and it makes you exhausted. I can't tell you how mentally exhausted and drained I am after a football game. But that level of concentration, it could be a million people. I wouldn't even know.
That's something that can't be taught. I imagine you have to live it, to experience it, to learn it, correct?
Yes, that's the experience, right? So it's so imperative to work the steps up to that level, because the crowds get incrementally bigger as you go up levels. So it just all of a sudden I was at 111,000 people, and I'm not sure how that happens. But again, I've been working towards it for 2 decades, right? 2 decades worth. So, I mean, I got into the NFL. My first year in the NFL was my year 20 in officiating. So it had taken 20 years and to not be so concerned with the crowd.
So then you get the call to work the NFL. Can you describe that conversation?
I was working the USFL League, which was a professional league in our off season. It was, there was a lot of NFL people involved, and it was to get to practice NFL rules, but they were a little bit modified in these leagues. So pretty much the same as the players, why the players are playing. The officials are there for the same reason, to get looked at by the NFL to see, if we can make it. So I had a delayed flight. I didn't get home. I had worked 2 games in one weekend, which was extremely hard, because I just told you how mentally draining a game is. To work 2 in one weekend is extremely tiring. And I had just worked 2, and then I had a delayed flight. So I'm exhausted. I land in Newark Airport. My fiance, Tom, picks me up, and we get in the car. I am just exhausted. I'm not even sure I'm going to make it home without falling asleep. And all of a sudden, my father is FaceTiming me. So I looked at Tom, at my fiance, and I was like, wait, I didn't even know he knew how to FaceTime. Like, I was so confused. I was so confused by my father FaceTiming me. So I was like, well, I'm just going to let it go. I'm exhausted. I'll talk to my dad tomorrow. I'll text him when I get home, and I'll call him tomorrow first thing. And Tom's like, no, answer the phone. I had no idea. I had still no idea. I was exhausted. I had no idea. I'm like, so I answer the phone. My dad's sitting on the couch in Nutley in his house, and my mom's sitting next to him, and they're just chit-chatting with me and just a regular old conversation. I honestly didn't even understand the story my dad was telling. I'm not even sure it made any sense, and I can't recall what it was. But all of a sudden, I kind of just interrupted him. I'm like, Dad, I'm so tired. Like, can I just talk to you tomorrow? I'm so exhausted. And he was like, yeah, just one more thing. Walt Anderson called, my friend Walt. And I said, okay. And he's, of course, the head of the officiating department in the NFL. And he said, well, my friend Walt just called me, and he wanted me to let you know that you've been hired in the National Football League. And I just kind of was like, what? Like, what? And he said, yeah. And we just burst into tears. And we just sat there crying, staring at each other for like 5 minutes. I was just, wow, I had no idea the news was coming. I didn't know it was that night. I didn't know to expect. And it's just such a surprise. And it was just wonderful. And I have to say, that was one of the nicest things that anyone's ever done for my family. They allowed my dad, knowing I had worked with my dad for 14 years in high school football, running out of tunnels and, having those special moments with my dad. And he knew how important it was to my dad and how important he's been to me and my career and the path that I took. And he let my dad give me the news. And that's something I'll never forget. It was very, very kind. Because, I would imagine that's the best part of your job, right? To welcome people in, and people are excited, and it's the best news you've ever heard. And to give that up, to have it even more special, which getting into the National Football League, what could be more special? Well, having my dad let me know. So it was incredible.
Tell us about your first NFL game.
The first NFL game. So preseason, we have preseason. And to me, those were they're regular games to me. I don't know the difference, to be quite honest. I was up in Foxborough at Gillette Stadium, and the Giants were playing the Patriots for a preseason game, my very first preseason game. And my whole family traveled up to see it. My mom actually flew with me because she was like, oh, well, if you're flying, I'll just go with you. And that's great. So I had a travel buddy. My fiance drove the rest of them up, and all the other family members. And it was just incredible. Running up the stairs, out of the locker room, up the stairs, onto the field for the first time, like with an NFL hat on, was just incredible. I I've never felt more alive than I have in that moment. And every time I run out onto a field, that is the same. I get the same feeling. It's just incredible. I never take for granted feel the way I always enjoy the way I feel and take notice of it, and I enjoy it. And
So you're a line judge, correct? That's your title?
this year, yes. So year one, I was a down judge. It's the same position. It's just the opposite side of the field. And then this year, they asked me if I would mind switching to line judge. Of course, the answer was no problem, whatever you need. It's the same position on the field. Like I said, it's just that I start with the home team now on the home team sideline, and I go to the visitor sideline instead of vice versa.
What does a line judge do for those who don't know?
Oh, goodness, everything. We do everything. So a line judge and a down judge, and in college it's called a head linesman and a line judge. We are the line of scrimmage officials. So we start on the line of scrimmage. Before they snap the ball, we're responsible for we're responsible for formation, false start, NZIs, DOFs, encroachments, motion, shifts, numbering, who's eligible, who's not. I said all the lines. Yes. So there's a million things. Is there the correct number of people on the offense on the field? Do I have, the right number of people on the line? All these things we're responsible for. And when you typically see a coach screaming at an official, most of the time it's the line of scrimmage officials, because we're right where the ball is, right? So a lot of times you're assessing all of those things, all the possibility of penalties, while you have someone chirping in your ear. So not always, but and then once they snap the ball, we could have snap infractions. We could have a million things after they snap the ball. I could have an offensive holding foul. I could have IDP, which is ineligible downfield. I could have pass interference. I could have defensive, offensive pass interference. I could have ICT, which is illegal contact, which is only in the NFL, not in college or high school. I have the spot where the ball ends, the next upcoming spot. So I have to tell whether it's a first down or not, or, how far away or close or over the spot is at the end of a play. So I'm spotting the ball. I'm responsible for fumbles. I'm responsible for forward or backward passes. I'm responsible for, we truly are responsible. The line of scrimmage officials are the detail officials. We have a whole slew of things we have to see and assess and make a judgment on and make a ruling on. And they could be the smallest, minute little details, like, did that guard flinch? Just a tiny little flinch, and that's on me. Or, was that hold big enough? Was the sweep to my side and I got a really big hold? Was it big enough? I have to make a judgment on that. So line of scrimmage is very specialized. And when I say very specialized, I mean almost the entire game of football we are specialized in.
Were you always good at blocking so many distractions out? Because as you're focusing on a million things going on during the game, you got a coach in your ear, you got 50,000, 100,000 people screaming. I mean, not just wear blinders. You basically have to wear, I don't know what to say, like brick walls on both sides. Were you always good?
Honestly,
were you always good with that as a kid growing up?
I don't know. Actually, I've never thought about that. I would think no. I'm going to say no. I wasn't always good at that. There are definitely times in my life I am very easily distractible. And then there's other times I'm in such a deep zone, kind of zen in life. So I know I have to go to that zen when I'm working a football game. I'm very well aware. Of course, I'm in a locker room by myself because, they're all men. So I do have a locker room by myself, and I do a meditation before I go out onto the field to try to bring my, brain awareness down on some things, but hyper focus on other things. And that is important in what I do before a game.
As a line judge, is there, or I guess any other position, any other official on the field, is there an ambition to move up the ladder to become a referee and have your own crew someday?
So we're all equals. There is no just we are 7 people that are all equal, including, and I should say 9 people who are all equal, because we do have a replay official in the replay booth along with a replay assistant. So there's 9 members of the crew in the NFL. We're all equal. There's no hierarchy. It's just what you prefer and what you are good at and what your assigner or supervisor or boss thinks you are the best at. So it's not typically some people move around. I have always been on line of scrimmage. So the only place I would go perhaps is as a referee, but it's just a change of responsibilities and position. Again, it's not a hierarchy.
Well, it's a lot more screen time, that's for sure.
Well, but that's important to them, right? You have to be very good at public speaking, and you have to be the face of the crew, and you have to present yourself a certain way. So those are talents that, an Alan Eck, who is my referee this year, and Alan Eck has, or John Hussey has, or, Carl Sheffers. They have that charismatic way about them. Now, they have their own things on the field, of course, that they're responsible for. They're responsible for roughing the passer and false starts and those kinds of things. And they have to manage the game and take charge when needed. Again, we all are specialized in our own jobs, and they are as well.
That's interesting. I don't think most people know that you're all equals. Most people think that the referee is kind of like, the boss and everybody, but that's pretty interesting. What are the biggest differences in officiating high school versus college versus pro?
Oh, there's a lot. The rules, definitely. The rules are definitely different. At high school level, it's extremely difficult because coaches, fans, athletes aren't aware of the high school rules. They're very different than what fans watch on Saturdays in college football, and especially very different than what you watch on Sunday in the NFL. The rules are completely different. They really are. And it's very difficult to work in high school football when everyone thinks you're wrong and you just kind of want to explain, like, no, you don't know the rule. Trust me when I tell you I'm right. Trust me, I've studied, I've done the work, and I'm right. Am I right all the time? No, of course not. But rules questions, yeah, in high school, I was pretty darn good with those rules. And it was hard to not be able to explain, like, no, you're arguing something you just don't understand. But you never get the chance to say that. And it's just, those are people who will ridicule the refs or blame them for a loss and that's really difficult. It's really difficult to not feel allowed or able to explain yourself.
Would you say that's the hardest part of the job?
Yes, 100%. Oh, and that's straight through. When fans argue, a lot of times they want to argue a rule, and we don't make the rules, right? The officials don't make the rules. The NCAA makes the rules. The NJFOA or the National Federation makes the rules for high school. The competition committee in the NFL makes the rules. They're going through that process right now and telling us what we're going to have to officiate in this upcoming year. Those are owners. Those are coaches. They make the rules. We enforce them. And again, it's very difficult to work a game and know how much time and effort you put in and how much, time away from our families we spend, so that the football game can go on. And here you are just tearing us apart. And I mean, the fans or even coaches sometimes, when they don't know the rules, it's very difficult to be professional, to hold it all in and just be confident in yourself and in your own head and say, no, I did the right thing today. I did a good job today. They may not know it, but I did what was right for the game. And I did what I was hired to do when they hired me to work this game. It's very difficult. It's very.
As you mentioned today, when we're taping this, the NFL has just made some major rule changes. I'm not going to ask you about how you feel about them because I know you can't talk about that. No. But today, again, they changed the tackling rule. They changed the kickoff rule. How difficult is that to adjust and learn to learn and implement in such a short time?
So we'll have clinics. So we're in a dead period right now. That's what they call it, the dead period. We're a union in the NFL, and our bosses, the front office, can't talk to us until May 15th. So on May 15th, we're going to find out our crew for this upcoming year. If we change crews, they'll let us know. And then we're going to start having meetings. And the NFL will provide a wealth of training for us. We'll have Zoom meetings. A lot of times we used to go and have a clinic in Dallas or in Indianapolis somewhere where we could all get together and learn together. Nowadays, we're more likely to use Zoom, but we have all day clinics where they're teaching us what they want, what they don't want. They're showing us film. They're telling us what the competition committee wants. This is not what they want, but this is what they want. And we just have to learn. We're professional officials, and we just have to learn and adjust. We do have training camps and mini camps and OTAs to practice. We also have preseason games those are our warm-ups or practice. So we're going to try these rules out and make sure we can officiate it. And then we can come up with all the things that are, might hinder us from implicating a new rule. And we could say that to our boss. Hey, this is what we're seeing. This is how and we're going to adjust to make sure that we're ready for game one.
Do you avoid social media?
I try to at all costs. I try to at all costs. But sometimes people send you things, so.
Oh man, that's crazy. I want to backtrack a little bit. The main thing that people talk about when they say the difference between the NFL and college and high school, whatever, is the speed of the game. How difficult is that? Obviously you have trained eyes, but that's got to be just something beyond comprehension.
It is. It's incredible, the difference. I'm not going to lie. And in preseason, it's not truly accurate either, the speed. So it was game one. I worked game one. Where was I? Game one of last year was New England Patriots actually at Miami Dolphins. And so the very first series of regular season football, I'm working in front of Bill Belichick. And now the speed of the game is going. And for a split second, I'm not going to lie, maybe that very first play from the line of scrimmage in the NFL, I might have just been like, oh my goodness. My very experienced crew recognized immediately, Robin, hello, and got on the O2O, because we wear O2O so we can speak to each other, just said, hey, RD, they call it RD, and they asked me something about that play, and I just kind of looked over, and they're like, right, we need that. I said, yes, you do. And after that, second down on, everything was great. It just all clicked. And I was like, oh, it's football. It's just really fast. I got that. I got it. And it was A-okay. It was that very first play though. Because I had never seen that fast. And like I said, by the second down, everything was A-okay. But that first down definitely took me by surprise.
Wow, that's interesting. You're obviously an inspiration to other women. Do you ever have time to think about that?
I think about it now in the off season, to be honest with you. I was very lucky. I was very honored to be asked just last week to go to Demarest High School, Northern Valley, I believe the name of the high school is, to be a part of a women's panel of distinguished women. And it was 2 high school students. They have this club called Girl Up. And it was just so inspiring I was so honored that they asked me to join. I mean, we had some incredible women on this panel. There were incredible women. And then there was just little old me. But it's just so important. And I do take it to heart, and I do take it very seriously. It's just so important to show girls that they could do this. Again, I didn't even know if I could do this because I couldn't see anybody doing it. I couldn't see any women doing it. And I didn't even know it was an option. And that's why it's so important. So in the off season, when I'm asked to do things like that, be on a women's panel or speak on behalf of, a group of girls or women, that's when I realize it. Other than that, during the season, I'm just trucking away, just trying to do my best and be professional and kind of be as incognito as possible, right? Because no one is there to see the refs. So I just try to do my job quietly, go home, analyze my games, and go back out there next week and just try to be as incognito as possible, because we're just humans in a uniform doing a job at that point.
Couple quick hit questions here.
Okay.
First things you think come into your mind when I ask you.
Oh, okay.
The most memorable game?
Ohio State, Michigan.
Any particular reason why?
It was historic. And right before they started to play, it started to snow. And we're in the big house and we're in Michigan, and it just started to snow. And I thought I was in a dream. It was a dream. And the game was a great game. We, as officials, we worked a fabulous game. We were graded wonderfully. We there were, of course, some things, that we wanted to do better, but we as a crew had a great game too. And I remember going back to the hotel after that game, and I said my whole family was there. And I remember getting in the shower and just crying. I was so happy and so relieved, I guess, and happy, and just so incredibly proud of myself and my crew that I just burst into tears. And I'm not a crier, so it was very memorable.
Favorite Jersey Shore town?
Point Pleasant Beach.
Springsteen or Bon Jovi?
Ooh, that's tough. I mean, the answer is both, but if I had to, I guess Bon Jovi.
Yankees or Mets?
Yankees.
Okay. I'm going to show you a couple pictures now, if you don't mind. I want to get your reactions. Okay?
Okay. Oh, goodness. Oh, what? That just brings up so many good memories. I love Nutley. Oh, goodness. I love Nutley. Wow. Those were all my closest and best friends in high school, were all those first bunch of letters there. The second line are things that we did as high school students on Friday night or Saturday night, and just fun, harmless fun that high school kids did. Same with the third line. The fourth line is about cheerleading. I was a Nutley High School cheerleader, as I said, and I was captain. I was very proud of that. We had an interesting camp one of those years, so that's why I highlighted that. Spring track, I loved spring and winter track. I had earned 11 varsity letters while I was in high school, so that was very special to me. Of course, I have a high school sweetheart in there. And of course, I have my parents and my brother Mark, and that's a quote that I still think about. So I'm glad that was the quote that I put in, because it meant a lot to me then as it does now.
And I see you're a member of the National Honor Society. Did you enjoy school?
I did. I loved school. I had many AP classes and honors classes. I had some of the greatest. I had Mr. McGinley and Mr. Chapman, and I had some of the greatest teachers, Miss Cohn in sociology. And I love Nutley. I can't say how much I enjoyed and how proud I am to have come from Nutley. And Nutley High School was probably the best time of my life, between school and learning. And like I said, I had the honors classes and I was a student athlete, and it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me to be there.
I have one more for you.
Oh, my cheer. Oh, goodness. Oh, so that's at the Oval, of course. And those are my senior cheerleaders. That was senior year. And from the left, that's Allison Iannuzzi. She was the other captain along with me. And then that's Daniela DePerry and Laura Sestilio, and then myself, and then Andrea Testa. I'm using maiden names because that's those were our names then. Such good times. Such good times. That's why I knew I wanted to cheerlead in college as well, because of what an incredible experience it was at Nutley and in Nutley High School.
Are you still in touch with any of them?
Yes, actually, Daniela and I had lunch about a month or so ago with our moms. Our moms are very good friends. They're still in Nutley. Daniela lives in out of state now, and I'm not around Nutley as often as I like to be. I don't live there anymore. Excuse me. So we did meet, but our moms are best friends, and the four of us had dinner, and it was wonderful to see her. It was wonderful. But we keep in touch. All of us keep in touch on social media.
How has Nutley influenced your career and your life?
In every way, it was such an incredible balance of the authority figures in Nutley who were my coaches or my teachers. They always demanded your best, right? But they did it in a way that wasn't detrimental in any way when you didn't succeed as you thought you would, right? So they wanted you to try your best, whether it was in a classroom or on a track field, or, oh my goodness, one of my favorite coaches, Mrs. Douse. She was our coach, our cheering coach in Nutley. And I remember we would have summer practices early in the morning. Now you're in high school, right? It's summertime. And the last thing you want to do is get up early in the morning and go to cheering practice. But we did. And every so often, Mrs. Douse would show up, and she had these big dark glasses on, and she kind of would stand there and very stoic. And you always wanted to impress her. And she just never let on that things were good until things were good, right? She demanded the perfection out of us and just work hard. And then when we did, we were rewarded with compliments and attention and nice job. And I know that was hard, and I'm proud of you. And I have to say, all of my teachers, all of my coaches in Nutley were that way. And I can't tell you how comforting it was to know that I could fail at something later on in life. But if I kept working at it, and didn't just say, well, it'll be okay. No. Nutley didn't accept that. No, work harder and you will achieve anything that you want. And I truly believe that Nutley, the teachers and the coaches and my parents, of course, that was the message that I received. And if I didn't, I most certainly wouldn't be in the NFL.
What do you miss most about the town?
Oh, people, although my parents still live in Nutley, I only live, a little bit over an hour away. It's not like I'm far. I was actually up there today. I still have my hair appointments at Melandre's with my girl Morgan. I still have my prescriptions at Gary's Pharmacy. I still have, my standing anytime I'm in the town, other than today. I had a rush today, but I always stop at Petrocco's, get a cup of coffee and say hi to Johnny and Anthony and Felipe and Al, of course, if he's in there. There's just certain staples in Nutley that I will never miss visiting when I'm there, and I'm there as often as possible. I will always plan a meal, always plan to eat in Nutley. Again, going to the ShopRite even. I love just running into people, and I'll go there with my dad, and we just see, it's like it's 20 years ago, and it feels amazing. And you just feel the love. Nothing will ever feel like home like Nutley has felt and still does feel.
It takes you 2 hours to get through the ShopRite, right?
Oh my gosh. 2 hours there, 2 hours in Petrocco's, a good half hour in Gary's Pharmacy. It's lovely. I love the people and how welcoming they are to me still. And you don't find that in this country. You just don't. I don't find, but nowhere else is home either. So I'm biased, but there's no place like Nutley.
Robin DeLorenzo, thank you for joining Inside Nutley. It's been an honor.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor. Anytime anything from Nutley, wants my input or my story or anything, I'm just so honored. I can't begin to tell you. I appreciate you asking me.
We are very proud of you, and good luck to you, and we'll see you on the field.
Thank you so much, Tom. This was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.